Back home, load shedding at the weekends is becoming the new normal in South Africa, and Trade Union Federation COSATU has now called on Public Enterprises Minister Lynne Brown to investigate the root causes of the problems at Eskom. That statement released today. To discuss, we're now joined by spokesperson for COSATU, Patrick Craven. Thank you for joining us. Patrick, don't we know the root cause, which is a lack of planning decades ago, or are you worried about the more recent problems now?
Yes, you're right. We do know some of the root causes. But we've raised this because so many different problems seem to have erupted at the same time. You've mentioned the main one, load shedding, but that followed on the collapse of a coal silo at one of the power stations, the long delay in the completion of the two new power stations, the allegations that a huge amount of money was wasted on labour brokers who were overpaid, the talk about spending money on some media breakfast function, and now this week a call on Eskom staff to consider taking voluntary retrenchment as a way of helping the utility to solve its problems. When so many things seem to be happening all at once, I think it's perfectly legitimate to ask, well, is this pure coincidence or is there some underlying problem? You're right that the initial problem in 2008 was caused by a lack of proper funding way back in the 1990s. And that may well be what emerges, but we need to look at all possibilities. Are there managerial problems, governance problems, as well as economic problems?
I agree with you. It's been one thing after the other. And I did speak to the Eskom CEO about this at their results. I mean, we heard about water problems, the coal silos, then problems with diesels. Then we were told they're unforeseen technical errors. So I put that to him and said, surely something's within your control. What he said is that Eskom has just become much better at communicating what the problems are, and the public is hungry for information. So obviously all these little details come out. Do you buy that?
Well, it may be partly true. We certainly do know about these problems, but that doesn't explain why we have these problems, and that's what we want this inquiry to look into. And
I guess the media spotlight is there as well. So constant Eskom stories coming out. What about the funding? Because that problem continues. And Eskom has said that it needs more funding. It's asked and it keeps on being pushed down by the regulator, NERSA, who doesn't want to pass on huge tariffs to consumers. Should we be sympathetic because of that issue?
Yes, I think we have to have some sympathy, because we said at the time of the 2008 crisis that was caused by a lack of funding way back in the 1990s, which we suspect was because they were thinking of privatizing it, which we were very much against, and therefore wanted to make it lean and mean as a private company. And I think we're still paying the price for that. Eskom, we believe, is still being run as if it had been privatized, and commercial criteria take precedence, cost-cutting, retrenchment of workers. Whereas our view is that Eskom should be treated as a vital public service. It's there to serve the people, not just people individually as consumers, but the government's entire expansionist restructuring policies in the Infrastructure Development Plan, the Industrial Policy Action Plan, will collapse if we don't have a reliable, dependable supply of energy as this program goes forward.
So Patrick, you're calling for an inquiry. Have you spoken to the minister or government yet? And also, my final question is, I agree with you. You know, I think the whole nation is concerned about Eskom right now. But should we put managers under the gun and start a whole new inquiry when actually they need to focus on getting the problems fixed right now?
Well, the managers may come out of the inquiry with a clean bill of health. We're not jumping the gun and assuming what the reason is. Obviously, the managers themselves will have to explain why they think there's a crisis. So we're not jumping to any conclusions. That would be wrong. And I'm sure we will be speaking to the Minister at some point, because she also must obviously be very concerned, because it clearly reflects badly on her department that we should be having so many problems, and I'm sure she will be sympathetic to our call for this investigation.
All right, thank you very much. Spokesperson for COSATU, Patrick Craven, and we'll see how that plays out. That brings us to the end of Business Review. I'll have a quick business update for you after